And welcome back to the And Go podcast with Bill, Brian, and Mike. Sticking with our theme this week, we're going to discuss Star Trek captains. And go.
So, Kirk versus Picard. Let's start it all the right way.
Yeah, start off with the age-old question there. What do you think, Mike? You going to weigh in?
If we're rating them on how much alien ass they took down, obviously Kirk's your go-to guy.
Yeah. Picard did get it in, every once in a while, though.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
You add Riker's tally to that,
yeah.
And definitely
that's
next
true.
Generation.
Riker, the captain always gets a piece. Yeah, I prefer Picard. The brashness of Kirk always kind of turned me off. I mean, I liked him in the reboots, but in the original run, I was never a fan. Again, with the exception of Generations, or whatever that one is, where they're both in it.
Interesting. So, you take new Kirk over old Kirk.
Yes, yeah, but Picard's still over Kirk regardless.
Okay. What about you, Brian?
What do I need to say? I grew up on Next Generation. I'm probably going to feed my child Next Generation. Her child will probably know about the Next Generation. And the generation after that will probably
I was going to say, yeah, all the generations know
Star Trek Generations.
Well, when you say the Next Generation, you got to pass it on. And the original Star Trek was our parents' Star Trek. We're not that old. Next Generation was our generation. Voyager was and Enterprise was sort of the generation after us, or I could see how people could get into it, but they got sort of gypped, in my opinion. Let's not...
I mean, just to kind of bookend that whole conversation, when I was a kid and I first watched Star Trek with my mom, I thought it was the most boring piece of shit I'd ever seen. I'm also younger than you guys, so when I was like, I had to be 5 and 7, trying to watch it, it's like, who the fuck cares? What is this nonsense?
It had its moments, but not really speaking to me, given the generational gap.
You talking about the original series?
Yes.
I'm talking about Mike. Is that what you're talking?
No, Next Generation. Watching it with my mom or whatever. Yeah, in the original running, I thought it was so boring. I thought it looked ridiculous. And then later, I think it was actually Voyager that got me interested in Star Trek.
Interesting.
As I said, Voyager, you probably jumped in afterwards. You also like Deep Space Nine more.
Yeah.
So I can see that. And I can understand why people older than us, geeks older than us, not saying you guys are geeks, but I consider myself as one to a certain degree. I can understand why they have a hard-on for Kurt and Spot's gay relationship, but it ain't for me. Threesome with Picard, Riker, and any number of women seems better to me.
Alrighty then. Now that that's out there.
Sorry, you got to do the fanfics. Got to give something for the people who love the fanfics. So who would you, Mike, since you're a different generation, who would you say is the best captain in Star Trek? Period.
Well, real quick, I feel like Bill is the most polished of all of us in terms of Star Trek knowledge. Who do you take, Bill? Picard or Kirk?
I'm Picard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It just, I don't know. To me, like both in realism and in, I don't know, just style, Picard had more of a command to him. He seemed like somebody who would actually be the captain of, a starship and the Enterprise. So I don't know. So
yeah, I could see that.
The flagship, ship, of the entire fleet is going to have somebody that has that level of I don't know, gravitas.
Yeah, I was gonna say. But then, Brian, going back to your question, it's hard to say, honestly. Probably Cisco would be my favorite of all the major captains, unless we're counting Worf as a captain from First Contact when he just bangs on the on the terminal.
Yeah.
Like trying to get it to work, Oh, sir, the power's down. Oh, let me just, come on.
Well, Cisco was weak, in my opinion, in the beginning. He got stronger and stronger as the series went on.
I feel like that was kind of by design, because
perhaps
he's strung out from from the encounter with the Borg, Wolf 359, and he had lost his wife and a bunch of other stuff. So I think he was just kind of disillusioned to a lot of stuff and going through shit. So I think that's the way they wrote and played the character.
Yeah, and he grew the beard. He lost his hair and grew the beard.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought he was a good mix of being a little bit more brash, but still having some authority to him, you know? And since he was, for the most part, commanding a space station, he really didn't... It's kind of a unique run in terms of captains. There weren't many opportunities for him to consider the Prime Directive and stuff like that. It was more just managerial.
Yeah, I was going to say his was interesting because you did have the station and the Defiant. So, he's the captain of the ship, and then, at first the commander and then later captain, on the station. So you get, like, the different dynamics, and probably arguably the darkest character of all the captains when it came to, like, his decision making.
Oh, okay.
So, because, remember the thing with the Maquis, and he, attacks the planet or whatever, one of the Maquis planets, and...
Yeah, he poisons the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, when you talk about a lot of the Prime Directive decisions and command decisions, on the bridge, he makes some of the harshest and kind of out of bounds type of decisions. Especially,
he sanctioned an assassination at one point.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff he dealt with on Earth when it came to the changelings and stuff like that,
Well, he's the wartime captain.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably what...
I mean, it was a good mix. Deep Space Nine was a good fit. It started during Next Generation's run, but it was completely different synergy to it. Voyager had the same feel as Next Generation, but it took a more bootleg method because of the circumstances they were in. And Enterprise, I really can't speak to that. I guess they were trying to recapture the original series with some updates. Scott Bakula as captain. It should have worked, but...
My only problem with going back to Sisko was he just... Oftentimes he was very distracted. Not very present, Because a lot of times even they would center the story around Major Kira or somebody else or Worf, on the Defiant, instead of him, because he just was always so involved with the wormhole aliens or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And he made a lot of very emotional decisions too. Always very angry and
Yeah, it's kind of what I liked also. Now that you bring that up, because it was a departure from growing up with Picard. This calm, cool, collected, logical guy. Brought in some brash. Well, I guess that's the brashness I was talking about.
And I have to say, even between the Picard and Kirk thing, one thing I do admire about Kirk that makes him, good in a different way is that he's kind of like your in the trenches captain. He's very close with the crew. He's friends with Spock and friends with Bones. I mean? There's a camaraderie with his crew that you really don't get with Picard as much. And that it can be good and bad, you know what I mean? But I think overall, like you said, Picard's calm, cool, collected, decision making, was, ultimately was better. But I did appreciate that about Kirk. And you get some of that with, in Deep Space Nine, with the camaraderie amongst the command crew.
Yeah, I could see that.
But, Sisko's close with a few of them, especially
Dax.
with Dax, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Carr did keep them... He was just more professional overall.
Yeah. I think the only one he ever really got close to on a personal level was Beverly Crusher.
He had some connection to Data, I believe. He had a...
Yeah, he did. You're right. You're right.
I think the arts brought those two together. Shakespearean, music, Yeah,
trying to help
Beverly
Data
and
find
Data.
his humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a rather calm, cool, collective. He felt that that was the way to be the best captain, in his opinion. And it made some of the stories where he did get, like when he got teleported, well, I say transported to that other life that he lived through, quite interesting to get to know how he would be not being a captain. I think that's Picard's best moments in when he's taken out of the captain chair. Character moment, should I say, for Picard. But other than that, he really, I think also the design of the show, him being that way, lets you focus on the rest of the crew,
Yeah.
their personal lives. I mean, personally, Geordi, Worf really didn't get much until Deep Space Nine. I think he had his moments, but he didn't really shine until Deep Space Nine, in my opinion.
They develop his character more, I think, in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, they let him be more than just a warrior.
Especially with his relationship with Dax and that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, as we mentioned previously, I loved that arc. Just the whole him finding love, and then spoilers, I suppose, her dying, and then, well, she's dead, but the core of her being is still around in this other form that you're not used to, and him dealing with that. I love that whole thing. So that's my personal favorite captain. Obviously, Deep Space Nine was my favorite series. What about you guys? Who would you...
I'll still go with Picard, okay?
Same.
But as I said, we grew up with that. You grew up with more later Voyager and Deep Space Nine. I'm sure current generations probably lean towards Janeway, as
I would be
unbalanced as
surprised,
she
honestly.
was. I mean, they could go. I mean, in the STD, the main character, the captain of that ship, pretty much was a scumbag. If I know the story correctly, he betrayed them, and when Christopher Pike came and sort of took over that role, I saw a clip on YouTube of your previous captain was a traitor, yada yada yada. I understand how you don't trust. They sort of, it's part of the subversion of a lot of today's culture, like Star Wars tried to subvert with The Last Jedi, the trope. But I think even Picard tried to Picard was a weird beast of a series. Bill would know more about that. Spy Track.
I mean, you don't have Picard in the captain's chair, so it's hard to kind of compare from...
Does anyone
that
really
new
take up
series.
the captain's role on their
Not
travels?
really.
Oh, okay.
Not really.
Just a ragtag band of space outlaws or
Yeah,
crew.
you kind of... It's
Or
almost kind of
Cowboy
the...
Bebop.
You kind of have the, like, Han Solo deal. You know, there's a guy with a ship kind of thing, you know. So I guess technically he's the captain, but he's being paid and kind of taking orders from Picard as to where to go. He just handles all the transportation part, you know.
I want to bring Firefly into this. How do you think what's his
Okay.
name compares to I mean, totally different universe, totally different rules. I can't remember his name. Nathan Fillion.
Malcolm Reynolds, baby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I watched it. I marathoned it a few years ago after it was completed a few years. But I remember it being a good show, completely different in nature. I think
I mean, it's kind of what the original series, I think, was trying to be. But in a more utopian and controlled way, you know?
Space Western?
Yes, a space western.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking how I think Malcolm Reynolds compares to the other captains, obviously there's different criteria.
He was very similar to Kirk in a lot of ways.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
But both of them, as you said, space westerns. Original Star Trek was pretty much a space western.
Yeah, it is very hard to compare. Smaller ships, less responsibility, fewer opportunities to creatively get out of a jam. It's mostly just like, well, shoot it, and then shoot it some more with Malcolm Reynolds.
There's less... He's the captain of the ship, and kind of what he says ultimately goes, but there's not that command structure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to really map those two comparatively.
So what about, we briefly touched on Janeway. How do you guys feel about Janeway overall? I know we've talked about her a couple of times now in the other...
Yeah. She's kind of somewhere in between Picard and Kirk, in my opinion. She's like, if there was a spectrum,
Yeah, she definitely had a lot of the Picard tendencies. I would compare her more between Picard and Cisco, because she got extremely She went from emotional response to deeply trying to uphold the Prime Directive in a weird quadrant of space.
Yeah,
that's true. I always found that interesting, her agonies with it. She was a little bit too... she was worse than Picard in a lot of ways. She had a rigid understanding, but sometimes she just it's like the Prime Directive didn't exist for her.
Yeah.
It was a weird flip-flop of her from emotional... And the emotional aspect of it, I could understand that if it worked, but sometimes it just seemed out of the blue for plot points. So that sort of turned me off of her as a captain. But as we said before, it was the writing, and I believe it was just them trying to do something completely different, and them, for the most part, succeeding. In some places, I think they had it very rough.
Yeah, she definitely felt like Picard light in a lot of ways. And I don't know if that was the intent. I don't know. I'm glad I started with Voyager and actually watching the entire series, because I feel like going from The Next Generation to Voyager would have been... I feel like there would have been a lot to be desired going in that direction.
There was.
Yeah.
But it's a different dynamic though, because I think a lot of people when they watch the show, especially later on, forget that there's two crews there that are melded together, because there's the Maquis ship, and so you get the command structure gets messy, and she's trying through at least half the show to integrate them, because you see them in Starfleet uniforms and stuff like that, and you start to forget that B'Elanna Torres was not a Starfleet. Commander.
She was a reject.
Yeah, exactly. There's that whole element too, where especially early on, Janeway almost kind of commands by democratic vote through a lot of stuff, because she asked Chakotay what he thinks because he was the captain of the other ship, and so she does ultimately make the decision still, but there's kind of more of a consensus, I think, that she looks for than just giving orders like you'd see from Picard or something,
And
there's an...
And Paris was supposed to be the guy who got Wesley's company in trouble.
Yeah.
But
it's the
I
same
think they
actor,
changed
and I think originally it was supposed to be the same character, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be the same character, but they didn't want to probably deal with the interaction. They just made a very similar character, I think, with the same actor.
It might have had something to do with the ownership of the character or whatever from the
writer.
Show. Yeah.
The writer had some credit to it.
I don't remember exactly, yeah.
Paris was originally going to be Will Crusher?
No, remember he was Wesley's squad leader that got in the flight accident while they were at Starfleet Academy.
Oh, right. Damn, okay.
Yeah. Because it's the same actor. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Fascinating.
And that's why it led into him being such a good pilot, but had issues, because he was kicked out of Starfleet Academy for that. So they just slightly changed the character and renamed him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
B'Elanna also, I think, was a cadet at some point. But
yeah,
she had
well, they
anger
mentioned
issues.
that in Voyager, that she was a cadet.
There's a YouTube series that goes through the personnel files for a lot of the major Star Trek characters. It's kind of interesting. And they include everything from the alpha lore, the stuff in the show, and then the beta lore, the stuff in the books or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they had one on Janeway that I listened to the other day. I wish I knew the name of it, so I can shout them out, but 3 people listen to this, so they're not missing out on a whole lot of traffic. But I guess Janeway, I didn't know this. I don't remember this being in the show. Like, I guess her husband died on one of the first ships that she was stationed on, and she went into this like year-long depression after that, and she wasn't in command at that time. She was like a science officer or engineer or something. So she then became a captain after that, and they think it's to, so she can be in more control and try to avoid things like that from happening. So I thought that added a really interesting layer to her character overall. And they even talked about how stubborn she was. I don't know where they picked up this piece of lore, but like she lost some tennis game and didn't play again for like 10 years. She hates losing. I don't know. Stuff like that made her a more compelling character to me than what you see on the show.
Mm-hmm.
She just wasn't that interesting.
Well, you're a lore junkie. Remember your fascination with the lore of Star Wars?
Oh yeah, man. I love that nitty gritty shit.
See, I'm more of a story buff. I like the stories. I mean, characters do make the stories. And I think Next Generation had the best self-contained stories. Deep Space Nine had the best overall arc. Because, let's face it, Next Generation did not have an overall arc planned out. It was self-contained stories that built upon characters.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And
for the most part,
Deep Space Nine had a long, complex war arc that probably wouldn't have been made if Gene Roddenberry was still alive. Voyager, it was sort of a mishmash between those two. They had an overall goal, but every episode seemed self-contained. And they had little arcs.
What was the captain's name in Enterprise? Archer?
Mm-hmm. Jonathan Archer.
What did you think of him as a captain, Bill? Since he's the only one that we haven't really touched on yet.
It was all right. Bakula plays him a little odd. Just the cadence of his voice, and sometimes gets a little weird.
Yeah, he wasn't a good... I don't think he's a good actor to play a captain. He's a little quirky.
Yeah.
Probably another reason. I mean, I like him as an actor. He's a very friendly and personable character in every role that I've seen him in, but didn't really fit. It wasn't really a Kirk or a Picard or Janeway or even Cisco. It was... I mean, yeah, he was basically someone fumbling with new exploitation, so it sort of fits, but...
Yeah, and he gives you more of a, which I think again was part of the design, more of a military feel than some of the others do, because it's early on.
Fresh
so it is
out of
kind
World
of like,
War III.
Yeah, so it kind of is, because Starfleet kind of starts as a military branch, and so he kind of gives you that a little bit more of the military feel before they, form the Federation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But overall, I think he was a pretty good captain. Just kind of, And there's other stuff too. There's not again, because it's their first time out. There's not a lot of groundwork for things like the Prime Directive and that kind of thing. So you don't get a lot of the same stuff that you get in the later captains, where it's pretty spelled out. What to expect.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see. I don't know what they would be off the top of my head, but it would be interesting to see some events taking place in that world that helped kind of mold what the Prime Directive later became.
Yeah,
where they fuck up some new species they find because they extend too far, and mess up their atmosphere or something,
There's a little bit of that kind of stuff here and there, and like stuff like promises made, that they really couldn't back up, and that kind of stuff with like medical help and that kind of thing. So they do toy with that. My biggest knock on Archer is they allow him to be too emotional in a lot of places. Especially he has this like long running feud with the Vulcans, and I get it because they're they're like super annoying and kind of oppressive in the way, they're dismissive of Archer and the whole program. So it is very annoying, but he loses his cool a lot for being the person to represent that. And he's always going on and on about how his father designed the first Warp 5 engine and blah 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 blah. So I don't know. I think they should have toned him down and have him a little more Picard-like, and especially with dealing with the Vulcans, to kind of like, prove them wrong. You know what I mean? Because that was the part of the point was initially the Vulcans wanted them to wait, a couple of more years, and he's like, well, it's been like 90 years already, and blah 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 blah. So, you would think, knowing that he would have been a little bit more diplomatic and in control dealing with some of those situations than he is in the show.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure that they probably took that route to further depart him from what we're used to seeing. I don't know. Yeah. I've seen maybe 2 episodes of Enterprise in my time, which is interesting because I remember when it came out, it was right around the time I was watching Voyager pretty much every night at like 11 o'clock on Fox or whatever it was, UPN maybe. And I was really into it. And Enterprise seems like it would be right in my wheelhouse, a little bit more gritty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll go back and watch it.
It's worth a watch. Yeah, I just watched it not too long ago myself through the second time.
Skip the first few episodes, though. Remember, that turned me off of it the most.
I mean, if you really don't want to marathon or go through the whole thing, I would suggest just jumping into the second season.
You don't miss much.
Yeah, the first season's a little slow going, a little rough here and there. I mean, if you're going to watch the whole series, it's worth watching just to get the background. But if you just want to kind of see what the episodes are like and want to jump in, go somewhere in the second season. Find an episode there.
This make me think. The first series, the first Star Trek, did they even bring up the Prime Directive that much? My memory of that is a little spotty. It was a rule. I remember Spock bringing it up once or twice throughout the series.
I feel like they focus on it more in Next Generation, but I do remember them bringing it up.
Yeah, probably more in the movies. Oh, that reminds me. There's a time travel version of the Prime Directive also that gets brought up in Next Generation, and I think other time travel versions.
Enterprise deals with that a lot. The whole time travel thing, yeah.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You brought up. To Paul, like, time travel is impossible, but we just time traveled.
Yeah.
Like, we did it last Tuesday, man.
You were there, right?
Time travel's iffy. This is why something like Doctor Who is best taken with a grain of salt. You can't take it too seriously because just half the shit they come up with in time travel, it's a kid's comedy thing originally. I mean, it created some iconic characters, and we really can't compare it to Star Trek since the Doctor is definitely not... He might be a captain of a small starship, but he's not a captain. In all his iterations.
Bonus, Mike, if you watch Enterprise, you'll see the couple of episodes where Seth MacFarlane plays a character as an engineer.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. I do love the Star Trek cameos. Like Adam Scott and First Contact.
Well, supposedly Bill Barr was in Mandalorian.
Oh, Bill Burr, he was great. Mm-hmm. He's actually coming back.
Oh.
And hearing him do interviews is interesting because he has no interest whatsoever in any science fiction. So that's kind of interesting. But he kind of got turned around on it. He came to and he probably just had to say it because he's part of a fucking sci-fi show now, but he was like, oh, I kind of get it now, what sports is to me, stuff like this is to some other people, just to use kind of a broad. I don't know. He's great. Can't wait for season 2. Are there any minor... Good.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, are there any minor characters, or are there any characters on any of the shows that um, either didn't become captains or became captains off screen or with limited screen time that you really thought would have made good ones?
I
I
mean,
phrased
Riker,
that right?
obviously.
Sure. Yeah, he would have had an interesting run. He would have been, I feel like, more on. He would have been a really good balance, actually, between that, on that spectrum of Picard to Kirk.
Yeah, yeah. I think the command opportunities that they give him, he does well with in the show. So I think it would have been interesting to see a series with Riker at the helm. And
Yeah,
I think Sulu was good in the movies too as a captain. Thought he made for a good captain, surprisingly. Kind of a minor character when you really think about it,
Yeah.
Scotty would have been the worst captain ever.
I don't think he ever becomes a captain.
Yeah,
Maybe he does.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Of the, it came up in one of those personnel file things.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the ship, but yeah, he does.
Yeah.
I think he may have been the captain of Cisco's first ship, the first ship that he was stationed on, or maybe O'Brien's. I don't remember. I don't know.
Oh, so after he's... No, it couldn't be. Scotty?
I thought so. Yeah.
Well, because he's lost in the
Yeah.
transporter accident
For
or
like
whatever
60
on the
years.
Dyson Sphere. Yeah, for like 70 years or something like that.
Does he
yeah.
become a captain later on after he comes
I
back?
think he was a captain of the ship that crashed on the Dyson Sphere, if I remember right.
I think he said he was a passenger. He was going to retirement.
Oh, maybe.
He was going to a retirement planet. Dyson
maybe you're right.
spheres.
What's with all these fucking transporter accidents?
You know who's actually the worst captain in all of science fiction?
Tell me.
Leela from Futurama. Unless you can think of a worse captain.
Dark Helmet.
He wasn't a captain. He was a evil overlord.
I guess that's true.
Vader wasn't really a captain. He killed most of his captains. Like,
Yeah.
you failed, die. Like, why don't you take the role? I get in my own little fighter and just kill people with the Force.
Malcolm Reynolds may have been the worst. I mean, I love him, but just he wasn't great.
I mean,
He kind of created more problems than he solved in some ways.
I mean, say what you want about Han Solo. He was a good captain considering his ship.
He was very resourceful.
Yes, very resourceful. Surprised he didn't use chewing gum and duct tape to keep his ship together, which he probably did, or at least the space equivalents of those.
Space duct tape.
Space duct tape.
Space gum and space duct tape.
So what do you think of, like, we mentioned the Prime Directive. What do you think of it?
So it pretty much just says don't fuck with species that, like, don't interfere with a species
Yeah.
progress, right?
It's like, it's especially the pre-warp species, but you can't mess with the natural progression of another species.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's
And I'm guessing that there's probably somewhere in the wording, I don't know if anybody's ever like actually written it out for any of the shows or something, that has to do with sentient beings, because if not, then there's a serious problem with the fact that they're colonizing all these Class M planets, because you're automatically going to interfere with the natural development of that planet. If you believe in evolution and you have a planet that can support carbon-based life, and then you colonize it, then you're obviously going to, interrupt its process of developing intelligent life.
Yeah, they rarely bring that up in the Star Trek universe, as far as I know. I'm at one series I keep trying to get you guys on, Bobaverse. It actually has an interesting thing about the Prime Directive, because basically he's a science fiction geek. In the second book, they find like a sentient species, like caveman level, at some point. So the main character, Bob, there's many versions of him, settle on this one planet, and he starts seeing these Batman big pig-like things. And there's like this other species wiping them out, which they call gorilloids. So the human sentient level caveman-like species they call deltans, and there's gorilloids. And he's talking to other iterations of himself, and they bring up the Prime Directive. He's basically trying to protect this human intelligent sentient caveman species from getting wiped out. So he basically helps them out, and they bring up the Prime Directive a lot. They even make up a joke, oh yeah, when they come around 10,000 years in the future looking for this species and be like, oh, we didn't save the species because of fictional rule from a science fiction TV show. I mean, they bring up there is cultural ramifications from a higher species sort of influencing, but the Prime Directive is a little rigid. It's a little Darwinism in a lot of ways.
I have it here if you want me to read it out.
Yeah, sure.
There's two versions. I'll read the slightly longer one. As the right of each sentient species to live in accordance with its normal cultural evolution is considered sacred, no Starfleet personnel may interfere with the normal and healthy development of alien life and culture. Such interference includes introducing superior knowledge, strength, or technology to a world whose society is incapable of handling such advantages wisely. Starfleet personnel may not violate this Prime Directive, even to save the lives and/or their ship, unless they are acting to right an earlier violation of an accidental contamination of said culture. This directive takes precedence over any and all considerations and carries with it the highest moral obligation. See that? I'm torn. I don't know. I realize it's supposed to be a utopia, but it almost reads like it's more for them than it is the other species. Like, I wonder if something happened where they accidentally kickstarted a culture and, there were terrible, terrible consequences.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would guess, too, is probably... because you have to be careful if you were to just give a less civilized culture suddenly overnight the ability to, I don't know, like a major energy source, like I don't know, dilithium crystals and antimatter, because that could be weaponized, right? So if they're not culturally there and then you give them new technology overnight, I don't know, it'd be like going back 200 years and giving them the atom bomb, you know what I mean? So you have to I can understand that part.
Well, they deal with that in the Next Generation.
They do.
One alien species gets an old probe from Earth, and I think they pretty much get nuclear power from our old, I think, American probe with samples of everything, and they just put themselves in a nuclear winter.
I think yeah. See, I mean, and that would be the obvious problem. I think the other problem is whether or not, like, mankind would impose their moralistic views on other societies, or whether or not they're developmentally in the stage to deal with a lot of those moralistic views. You know what I mean? Like, you can't come into a situation and be like, oh, you guys got to stop doing such and such because it's wrong. You know what I mean? I think that's part of the reasoning for the Prime Directive, too, is because you can't, like, impose your beliefs on other cultures before they even finish developing, I think that's part of it. But to me, one of the areas that, I don't know, gets a little odd is like medical issues or like imminent destruction of a planet. Because remember, they deal with that with the little girl who radios Data for help. As Data like accidentally makes contact with her, but they were not a warp capable. At least they indicate that they're not, but they have a lot of technology, so I'm not really sure what the deal with that is, because she radios him and then he radios back and then she finds out that he's like an alien on a starship and asks for help. So Picard has to deal with, do we help their dying planet that's, breaking apart now because somebody asked for our help? And ultimately, he decides to help them because he's like, well, we've already contaminated the situation, and now there's a cry for help, so we have to answer that, So,
okay, yeah. I mean, when it's something like that, and you can stealth help, I mean, this is where the Prime Directive gets a little bit iffy. I mean, do they deal with that in Voyager? I mean, they deal with some instances where they can help people out with their technology, and they can benefit from it. And Janeway's rather tough about that.
In a way, though, they kind of violate the Prime Directive in the first couple of episodes. They insert themselves in that conflict.
With the caretaker or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, and blow up the caretaker thing that could have gotten them home, right?
Yeah.
So
it might have set back. Janeway's interpretation of the Prime Directive is really weak. I don't know if that was a Prime Directive or more of a moralistic decision.
Well, yeah, I think they frame it as a moralistic decision where they're like, well, us getting home isn't more important. But I'm like...
The survival of the species.
You have no idea, really what's going on here. And she's making all these big decisions, for a species or a handful of species that she just met. You know what I mean?
It's theorized that they would die in a couple of generations if they didn't take the action they did, if I remember the first episode correctly.
Yeah, well, they were worried that I forget the name of the species was going to get the technology from the caretaker because caretaker had died, and they were worried that they would then use the technology there on the station to take over the other couple of species in the area. So.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember the caretaker, but I don't remember what the conflict was, to be honest.
Yeah, because I think what it was is Kess's people.
Oh.
The caretaker had done something to them. I don't remember the exact details. It's been a while, and was trying to find genetic material to help them, and that's why they brought Voyager there. But then the caretaker died. And there was that other, the Ocampa, or I don't remember which one was which, but that other species was on the top side of the planet. They were the ones attacking, so they decided to destroy the station where the caretaker was. I don't know.
I wanted to bring up this example real quick. Imagine if aliens would have come around Earth and saw what was going on during World War II. Imagine the Prime Directive seeing what the German people were doing and be like, okay, we can't do anything about it. Let's just go on our merry way. I think
that happens a lot in multiple series.
Yeah, let history take its course. I mean, if there are aliens out there and they do have a Prime Directive, but their Prime Directive be like, we can beam them up and give them anal probes. But they can't remember anything about this, and that goes awry. But that's besides the point.
Because, ultimately they struggle with planetary destruction. It'd be like if there was an asteroid heading for us, 100 years ago, and we had no idea about any of that crap. Do you just let an entire planet get blown up? Or do you destroy the asteroid and move on? You know what I mean? Because technically that's a violation of the Prime Directive, right?
Sure.
Weren't technologically advanced enough to ask for help. There's a contamination of their timeline, by you interfering. So I don't know. That to me, that's where it starts to get weird. The Prime Directive gets a little weird. It kind of goes off course in a moral way. Because at what point do you try to save an entire world or an entire species?
Yeah. I mean, there's other mediums. My best. Tachyon Webb, a book by Christopher Pike, which wasn't one of his horror, was pretty much about humanity having, I think it was hyperspeed. They had some sort of warp technology, and they had a system-wide thing set up that people can't break out of. Some teenagers break out of this Tachyon Webb, that's why it was called Tachyon Webb, and find that there's these aliens just trucking along, and their sort of hyperdrive needed coolant, so they have to break into these aliens. Ended up, basically, humanity was just monitoring this one alien species using pretty much just rockets to go system to system because their home planet got destroyed. Sort of the same moralistic details of that. If you saw an alien species who created these huge colony ships to try to survive a apocalyptic thing of their planet and not help them out, that seems a little messed up.
Yeah, I'd agree. Because like you said, what possible advance are you... I like the meteor example. Meteors coming to Earth.
Well, they could just blow the meteor out without us knowing if it...
That's the thing, but then, yeah, that is technically a violation. But, like, what... So the planet gets destroyed and maybe fragments from the planet form another planet, and then there's eventually going to be life on it. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Or even if it's just, like, causes a nuclear winter and kills out mankind, but some other species later develops. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to destroy the whole planet, but, you know, we easily die off from a number of things.
Does traditional Earth religion ever show up in Star Trek?
They bring up when they get into religion with other species. They're like, Earth once had this sort of system. We've grown past that, yada, yada, yada. I mean, especially in that, where that one goddess tries to lay claim to a planet and they have the little trial.
Yeah.
They bring that up. But it's not framed. It's very secular Star Trek. They try to use reason. Considering Picard dies and Q is the god.
Yeah, it's a good point. They have a species that would be considered...
pretty much gods.
Yeah.
But they make clear that they're not, right? That they're just an advanced species that have, like, evolved to that point. Which to me, it sounds kind of like, honestly, like they became fourth dimensional beings, or were fourth dimensional beings.
Yeah, yes.
Because if you think about it, as third dimensional beings, if we were to manipulate a two-dimensional being, it would look like we were gods, right?
Yeah, but what two-dimensional being? I mean...
Well, no, I mean, if there was, you know...
Well, we do. We do.
Yeah.
Comic books are us messing with two-dimensional beings, if you think about it.
This is true.
I mean, we are the worst. I mean, considering half the stories out there, we are mad. We are evil gods. There's even an anime that sort of deals with that concept of 2D characters being summoned to our world. And a lot of these characters who are superpowered anime characters, some of them get pissed at their creators. Some of them are like, oh well. But other ones are like pissed. Like, why did you create such a horrible world for me to live in? It's entertaining for people. Maybe that's how the Q people really see the three-dimensional world.
Well, you'd think that if it's easy enough for us to manipulate a two-dimensional world without being perceived, that it might be the same for a fourth-dimensional being, and that may be exactly what the Q continuum is kind of based on. Is that maybe there are fourth-dimensional beings?
Yeah, they can kill each other. They stated that they can go to war. Maybe the Q was basically just a weird fourth wall break of the writers.
Yeah.
Maybe there was one sadistic writer, like, let's face a character and this jackass on Q. Considering what I know about the backroom dealings of the original Star Trek Next Generation, makes sense. That one writer would write someone in.
How interesting would it be to have a series about the Q continuum?
Yeah, that would be fascinating. It'd probably get a little worn.
I doubt it would work well. Very few people could actually do the Q storylines well. I mean, acting wise. What? Q had a daughter at one point.
Yeah. I don't think did he have a daughter, or was
he definitely had a son.
No, okay.
He had a son. Yeah.
Two Q people
had a daughter, and he recruited her. Right.
Yes, he was trying to recruit her. Yeah, you're right. He did also have a son with Janeway, I think. No, he
No.
was trying to basically have Janeway as the mother. And
Yes.
she got someone else, and she was like the godmother of a cute child.
Yeah. And he was temporarily powerless, like they all seem to be at some point in time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit on the internet talking about the Prime Directive. I could not find a chart, though, of who broke the Prime Directive the most.
To be honest, it might have been Picard.
Yeah. He almost got in trouble for that a few times.
He did.
It's interesting because there was a fan vote and of which captain had the most respect for the Prime Directive, and Picard was number 1, with Janeway at number 2.
What?
Yeah, 65%, 21%, then 6% for Cisco, 5% for Kirk, and 3% for Archer.
I will agree with that. I think Picard had the most respect for it, and he would like consider it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, I think that there were times where he decided to break it because it was necessary, but it wasn't done lightly.
Okay.
I really wish. I can't believe there's not a chart. Just
Yeah,
who broke it
be
more.
something there, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
Come
who
on,
had counted
Reddit.
up the different instances or something, yeah.
It's the fucking internet. Everything's supposed to be here. The fuck is this, man?
It's our next project.
Yeah.
Rewatch all the series and count up all the Prime Directive violations.
If I had time, that would be a lot of fun.
It would be. Make a drinking game out of it, right?
Sure.
Every time they break the Prime Directive, right?
That'd be the most boring drinking game
You
ever.
could work other things in there, you know?
Yeah. Data mentioned his cat spot. I don't know. I would be the worst at coming up with a drinking game. Vote it most likely to be the worst to come up with a drinking game with me.
What else?
Who would you rather be your captain? How about that? Interesting.
Well, would we have to be in their circumstances? Like, do I have to be stuck?
Yeah, which ship would you rather serve on?
See, that changes my answer a little bit. I was
Or
gonna
either one. You could divide it out if you rather would, you know.
I mean, not to be a broken record, but I'd love to be stationed on Deep Space Nine, man. There's all kinds of fun shit going on.
I'd rather be on any of the other ones. I wouldn't want to be on Deep Space Nine. I mean, yes, it was the most fun one, but it was also a wartime station.
That's true. That's true.
Quark would probably try to swindle me out of all my money. He'd probably swindle
That's also
a lot
true.
of people out. I would rather go on adventures. I would actually go with probably Kirk in the original one, the Bold Frontier, less rigid rules. As much as I like Next Generation, they seem to have the most rules.
I mean, there's no way I'd pick Voyager, right? Because if you're talking about situation, they're kind of always screwed. You know what I mean? And you never get off the ship.
But you would have a chance to get with a Borg. You could have a chance to get with the 7 of 9. Okay, I just got to bring that up. That's probably the only
Brian,
pro.
if that's part of your reasoning, I can't believe you chose original Enterprise because Kirk was banging everything. There was no one left to bang. Kirk had already given them all fucking genital herpes.
Yeah, he's gonna say he's just cleaning up after Kirk. Right?
I'm just putting this in perspective. Kirk would have loved to be on the Voyager because
Voyager was my number 2, honestly, because it sounds cool being in the fucking Delta Quadrant, literally where no one has gone before.
I mean, I'd like the idea in principle, but always traveling and never getting any rest, that would weigh, and that definitely weighed on the crew a lot of times. Never be able to settle down, never knowing what shit you would get into. I'm with Bill. Voyager would be the last ship I would want to be on.
Although maybe the original, the Enterprise, so Enterprise from the show Enterprise, because, man, they are always getting their ass handed to them. Like left and right. And I think at one point they mentioned one of the seasons where they go on this mission to kind of save Earth by, confronting this other alien species. I think they lose like over a third of their crew.
See, I would be fine with that.
That's
as long
pretty,
as I would
pretty
have
high
a place
chance
to
of
go
death.
home.
Yeah, 1 out of 3 is pretty big.
Yeah. I think I'd either pick, Enterprise D with Picard, or I would pick Deep Space Nine if I could serve in the Defiant and go into
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed on that.
Go through the wormhole, because you kind of get the best of both worlds, right? You can come back to Deep Space Nine, to where you have, like, you're in the Federation, but then you can also go to an entirely different quadrant, through the wormhole. So.
Oh yeah, I'd be palling around with Garrick. It'd be fucking
Plus,
great.
the Defiant was diminutive but freaking badass.
Oh yeah, man.
First
Probably
Federation
my favorite
with cloak.
ship.
Yeah, what
Legally.
the hell is with the cloak thing? That always pisses me off. I mean,
That was part of that treaty, right?
yeah, with the Romulans. But the Romulans, like, what treaty? You guys, they're always, like, violating shit left and right, and you're going to let the Klingons and the Romulans have cloaking technology, but the Federation's just like, bend me over. Like, who the hell signed that treaty?
Yeah, that's a weird concession.
Yeah.
But the Riker's captain who tried to go against that was dumb also. The weird cloaking, the space.
That would have been cool if they could make it work, because they could, like, phase through shit. Yeah.
That's just too dangerous.
Yeah.
There plenty of problems with that. Even in Eureka, Eureka was a good show to actually play around with scientific concepts.
Can you imagine turning that bitch on during a fight, though, and a torpedo just, like, phases right through you and out the other end? I mean, how would you even deal with that?
See, that's what I thought.
See, it's an unstable technology, so...
No, I'm saying if you got it to work, can you imagine... I mean, you wouldn't... How would you hit that? You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah. I think the problem is it's just a very unstable technology.
Yeah.
Actually, it's almost like a temporary turning something into like the transporter deconstructs. I think it was off of that principle. And
I hated that though. I thought it was a neat episode where they phased through that asteroid. But it just makes it broken. Because like you said, I mean, all right, you turn the ship invisible. Maybe that wasn't science fiction-y enough for them at the time. Oh, you can just make something invisible? Wow, mirrors. But I don't know. Making it
like phase through something. Yeah.
Non-corporeal. Yeah, it's just fucking weird.
The teleporter technology is ridiculous if you think about it.
I've never been a fan of that either. That's what turned me off. Again, when I was a kid, when it came down to like Star Wars versus Star Trek, I was Star Wars all day because it just seemed too fantastical. Okay, now we're transporting.
I already found the teleporter idea interesting. I even adapted my own technique for it. I had the idea of basically teleporting people through cables, basically having something that would compress the electrons to turn individual atoms into electrical particles, or at least theorize with that, and through cable. But I could never wrap myself just molecules being spread out and being reconstructed. That seemed a little too unstable, in my opinion.
I don't know if it's that it was supposed to disintegrate you with a pattern and then bring you through subspace. I think it was the idea, and then reassemble you on the pad. But I've always had a problem with a lot of the stuff with the transporter. I think it was it becomes a useful thing throughout the show to get out of a lot of issues, but sometimes in a bad way. You know what I mean? It becomes a catch-all. We just beam them out at the last second all the time,
Outer Limits, I think, played with this idea very interesting. It might have even been the episode with Michael Dorn, the actor who played Worf. I could be wrong about that, but they had one thing where they had the teleporter. Humans were teleported into another system, and basically how it worked is they teleported someone and they killed the original body. It was really direct with this. They hid the fact that you got teleported, and they just killed your original body because of some causality.
So personally, I think what it would have been more interesting, because they go pretty far into explaining how the teleporters work, right?
Yeah.
And that is an issue. I mean, other series have made jokes about it. People have always talked about, is that the same person? And I have the same problem. Like, if you're going to disintegrate somebody down to the molecular level, or even below that, right, to bring them through subspace, and then reassemble them, arguably, are they even the same person, right? So you're reconstructing them, and even their like brainwave patterns and things like that. So I get that, but are they even? Can you even call that the same person after they've gone through? And they kind of make that argument, for me with Riker being split into two people, right? So they have this pattern. They break him apart on the planet, and then bring him back to the ship. And part of that pattern gets reflected back down to the planet, and now you have two Rikers. So which one's him? Both? Neither? I mean, to me, neither. Because now you've reassembled their molecules. At that point, they're the same as the steak you get from the replicator. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Couldn't you just replicate a whole person in theory?
And that's the other thing is so if they build a pattern, they even reference a lot of times, like, let's check the pattern from 6 months ago from the transporter logs, right, and see what the differences were, to see if somebody maybe is like an imposter or something. They reference that kind of thing a lot, and they have biofilters and all this other shit that they talk about. So why can't you send somebody through a transporter to get rid of diseases?
Good question. Yeah,
because they always talk about, the transporter like filter can't get rid of that. Well, why? Because everything's broken down to the subatomic level, right? So why would that be a problem? And two, if somebody died or got old for that matter, couldn't you just refer to a previous transporter pattern and rematerialize them, which they actually do a couple of times on the show? So, like, essentially, no one would ever really have to get old or die or get sick, because you could just send them through the transporter, use an old pattern, and I'm sure somebody could probably figure out a way to have their body's pattern separate from like their brain pattern or brainwave pattern, right?
Yeah.
So you could essentially not even lose memories doing that.
Or give yourself a better body.
Yeah, or away mission, somebody gets a hole blasted in them, then just bring them back up with the pattern, to where they no longer have a gaping hole in their chest, So you lose 5 minutes of memories. I think I'd rather not have a hole in my chest. I don't, you know what I mean? So there's a lot with the transporters that bother me.
Another example of something that is sort of plays into transporter and also with the Prime Directive is Avatar. Sending your consciousness to another body, a constructive body, so to speak. What if they can teleport a whole body? Why even bother with teleporting live people to planets? Just make an artificial body and send the conscious pattern. I mean, if they do it with Geordi, I guess he's special when he goes down to this one planet to look for his mother. His mother goes down in a ship.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because he's controlling that robot.
Or holographic body, yeah.
Yeah, it was a robot, a probe.
Yeah. I mean, with holograms, I mean, there's a lot of hand
That's
waving
another
away.
One. Yeah.
Oh,
like
the holograms is a
played around with trying to make a hologram like have actual like corporeal form, you know what I mean? So with force fields or materializing it like you would with a replicator, I
mean, how good are those force fields that you could get it on with a holographic chick and like Quark's
telling you.
What did Quark call his holodecks?
The holosuites.
Holosuites. Okay. I assume
worst
that's
job
what they
in
were
Starfleet,
used for.
man. Worst job in Starfleet. The guy that's got to scrub the damn holodeck.
Oh yeah, just covered in jizz.
I'm sure they have a biofilter for it.
Riker comes out and like towel on his forehead, and they're like, "God damn it!" Right?
Just teleport it away.
Sees like some support crew like wheeling in a mop and bucket, and like, yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
I
they
get the
have like
joke.
an automatic like phaser system that just burns everything out
Sure.
of the room.
Yeah.
Yes, decontamination of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always had a problem with all that as well. Like,
there was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, good, good.
No, I was just going to say there's technology I think that might have been better served that's used in Next Generation, where they find the species that can move planet to planet with like that like teleporter window. Like to me, if they had worked out some sort of system where like the kind of like the warp field, if they could fold space over a limited
Sure.
distance to where you walk through like a fold in space to where it's
how-
still your body and you're moving quickly from one point to the next through like a space-time fold.
But Bill,
Like, that
haven't you seen
would have been
Event
better than a
Horizon?
transporter.
That's how you get the necromorphs from Dead
Yeah.
Space.
Space Devil.
Well, because that's what they do. Like, remember, because Picard, there's like a planet blowing up, and he ends up stepping through that portal.
Right,
Yeah. So like, it would be the same deal as that, because that wasn't he didn't transport, right? It wasn't like his molecules came apart and he reappeared. He like literally stepped from one point in space to the other. So it was that like space folding. So why not use something like that as versus a teleporter where you have to explain, is it the same person or not once you take them apart and put them back together,
Yeah. Same science, timey-wimey craziness. Agreed.
I have a little bit of an easier time with the replicators because,
Yeah. They're basically
I-
3D printers.
yeah, and do they need organic matter to...
I think they do. I mean, the replicators in Voyager start not working or having limited resources. You need the atoms to create all these items, I'm assuming. So
Gotcha.
they're pretty
And
much...
we're cloning meat now, so it's not that big of a jump to say, okay, in 400 years, we have...
That is an interesting question. That's one I've had myself. Do they have to have like base elements or can they use pure energy? Because you would think through like the whole energy matter conversion that they talk about with the transporters that they could just use power from the engines to create you a steak,
Maybe it's a
using,
Lost
like,
Boys.
Einstein's theory or something.
Well, why would Voyager have limited replicator use in that case? I think there's like these packs.
Oh, you're
in
talking
Voyager.
about the biogel packs. So they use those as like a power source.
Okay, they're a power source. Okay.
Yeah, those are a power source. But they do at some point explain that there's like certain things that the replicators can't make, certain elements. I don't know how or why, what the deal is, but they talk about how there's certain things they can't just replicate. They've got to like have the resource.
Well, some things you just have to be like, it's super science, God fiction crap.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what you
Teleporters
do.
is one of those things. Even the warp drive. A lot of people criticize any of this instantaneous breaking the light speed barrier laws. Like a lot of science fiction, serious, more hardcore science fiction, like Ender's Game. They use time travel like that. I mean, and your favorite Interstellar. They use those principles.
like the relativity,
Yes,
like as you speed up.
Einstein.
Yeah.
Yes, time slows down as you get to a close point to light speed.
Yeah, the warp bubble is, the space folding, accessing layers of subspace is different than just relativity.
It's like hyperspace, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Subspace.
So there's like, I think there's a couple of things I've read about. There was an explanation of that, of like the different levels of subspace and what the warp bubble is able to access, which gives the different like speeds.
Yeah, there's
the
a
warp
one
speeds.
episode where people get stuck in a warp bubble. I think Beverly gets stuck in like this weird experiment from Wesley, where she gets stuck in a whole different universe.
Yeah.
Random thought. I really like the name Beverly. I don't know if I've ever met a Beverly, but it's
Beverly.
a nice name.
Especially the way Picard says it, right?
For sure.
Maybe I should name one of my female characters Beverly sometime. I use
should.
Barbara
Bev.
and Susan.
Ugh.
What? You don't like Susan or Barbara?
I don't like Barbara.
Okay.
Well, I
Susan's
guess I
fine.
know one Barbara.
Okay. Anyone?
Shout out Barbara. You're never gonna watch this, but shout out my buddy from fuck. What was that blog website?
Okay, we have enough filler space already. I think we should close this out unless anyone has any relevant thing to say on the matter.
I don't remember the name of that blog website.
I said relevant.
Oh. Well, this has been fun. Thanks for tuning in on our fourth part of a 4-part Star Trek series. If you like this, you can check out the top 10 lists from the last 2 Tuesdays where we rank the best and worst Star Trek characters. We're here every Tuesday with the top 10 list and every Friday with a general podcast. Don't forget to tell us how much your favorite captain was neglected in the comments below. And we'll see you next time. Bye.